Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of the end times. On today's program, I want to answer the four most frequently asked questions about the millennium. Who will survive into the millennium? Will people still sin during the millennium? Will Jesus Christ reign in person during the millennium? And how long does the millennium last? But first I want to respond to the false prophets who claim there will be no millennium. I recommend that they read the Olivet Discourse, or Daniel, or St. John's Book of Revelation. In Revelation, St. John refers to the millennium 8 times, 6 times as a 1,000-year reign of peace, and twice as the first resurrection. 8, of course, is the biblical number for new beginnings. Now let's look at Scripture and see where we find the millennium. Now in the end time chapters of Revelation, that is numbers 6 through 20, St. John refers to 4 groups of blesseds. These 4 blesseds are the 4 groups who will reign during the millennium. In chapter 14, verse 13, St. John writes, "Blessed are the dead who die in the Lord. From henceforth they rest from their labors." If you understand St. John's cryptogram, you know that from henceforth means during the second half of the Great Tribulation. Those who are martyred in the first half of the tribulation will not be graced. Not even Enoch and Elijah will survive into the 1,000-year reign of peace. In chapter 16, verse 15, St. John writes, "Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame." This group refers to the protected Catholics, who must watch and keep eternal vigilance because they are hiding in the desert away from the Antichrist. In chapter 19, verse 9, St. John writes, "Blessed are they who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb." Now this particular group are the raptured Protestants, who will be raptured into heaven out of the tribulation period. In chapter 20, verse 6, St. John writes, "Blessed and holy is he that has part in this first resurrection. In these the second death has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ." This group are the 144,000 converted Jews who will serve as priests during the millennium. In chapter 11, verse 18, St. John describes all 4 groups. "And you," meaning God, "will render reward," the reward is the millennium, "to your servants, prophets, saints, and those who fear your name." Now the servants are the converted Jews, the prophets are the raptured Protestants, the saints are the protected Catholics, and those who fear God's name are the holy martyrs. Now the prophet Daniel writes about these graced groups 4 times. In chapter number 3, King Nebuchadnezzar sees 4 individuals in the fiery furnace: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and one who looks like the Son of Man. These symbolize, again, the 4 groups who will reign during the millennium. In chapter 5 of Daniel, at Balthasar's profane banquet, he sees 3 words written on the wall: Mene, Tekel, and Parsin. Those represent the raptured Protestants, the protected Catholics, and the holy martyrs. 3 of the 4 groups who will reign with Jesus during the millennium. In chapter 11, Daniel also refers to 3 of the 4 groups who will reign during the millennium, when he says that Edom, Moab, and Ammon will escape the Antichrist. Those 3 neighborhoods in Jordan symbolize the raptured Protestants, the protected Catholics, and the converted Jews. In Daniel chapter number 12, he writes about all 4 groups. "At that time shall Michael rise up, who stands for your people." Your people are Daniel's people, and that is the converted Jews. In verse number 2, "And many of those that sleep in the dust." That refers to the holy martyrs. In verse number 3, but they that are wise. They that are wise refer to the raptured Protestants. And verse number 7, to scatter the power of the holy people. The holy people refer to the protected Catholics. All four groups who will reign with Christ during the millennium. In the Olivet Discourse, Jesus refers to these privileged groups several times. Let's look at chapter 24 in St. Matthew, verse 31. He shall send his angels with a great sound of trumpet, and they shall gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Now this is not one group. Those he gathers from the four winds refer to the protected Catholics who are hiding out in the desert. Those he gathers from one end of heaven to the other end of heaven refer to two more groups. Those who are attending the marriage supper of the Lamb, the raptured Protestants, and the holy martyrs. Now we've answered the question of who will reign during the millennium, but we have several more to answer. Will people still be able to sin? Will Jesus reign in person? And exactly how long is the millennium? The answers to these questions can be found in the parable of the talents. The parable of the talents is a story about the millennium. Let's look at Matthew chapter 25, verse 14. For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling into a far country. The man symbolizes Jesus. The far country is heaven. Who called his servants and delivered to them his goods. Before Jesus goes to heaven, he will give his servants their talents. But how soon does he go back to heaven? In verse 15, Jesus says, and to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, and straightway he took his journey. That means that Jesus goes back to heaven immediately. He does not reign during the millennium in person. This is very important to understand from the parable of the talents. The next question is, how long is the millennium? In other words, how long will Jesus be gone? And Jesus says, after a long time, the Lord of those servants returned and reckoned with them. Reckoning is judgment. The long time refers to the millennium. In other words, Jesus does not give a specific time frame. A long time could be 1,000 years. It could be much longer. All we know is that Jesus simply says, a long time. The next question is, will people still be able to sin? Let's see what Jesus says to the wicked servant. You wicked and slothful servant, cast the unprofitable servants into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Obviously, people still will be able to sin during the millennium. In today's perverted society, we may find it hard to believe that people would go to hell just for being slothful. But remember, those who survive into the millennium are the cream of the crop. And Jesus said to those to whom much has been given, much will be expected. Thus, in conclusion, we find there will be 144,000 raptured Protestants, 144,000 converted Jews, and 144,000 holy martyrs who will survive into the millennium. St. John does not enumerate the number of protected Catholics, but all four groups will receive the tremendous grace of living during the reign of peace. Remember, the 7 years of tribulation, which are almost upon us, are like a final exam. Those who pass this final exam will qualify for the millennium. Remember, Jesus said that the 7 years of tribulation will be the worst in the entire history of mankind, before or since. Now, if you would like more information about the end times, simply write to the address you see on your screen.